Okay, so welcome back everybody. This is we're coming up to the mono section. Anne's been doing a sterling job all morning, so let's switch over to John and Anne to do the mono section, which is the last one of this sequence.
Well, hello again, everybody. So far, we're doing pretty well. If you hear laughter and you don't know what it's all about because you're watching this first rather than later on, you will find out eventually, but it's going to happen again in about 7 minutes. Anyway, let's get on with it. John, can we do a run through, please? Okay, we've got some really quite interesting and imaginative images in this section. This one, I like the concept of it. You know, isolating the bench, the foreground bench, and then going off using differential focus, but still our eye being led through the picture. But I just get the feeling that whereas the bench, the middle part of the bench and the armrest to the left of the picture are really, really sharp. For whatever reason, the armrest on the right hand side just looks a little bit soft to me. And I can't quite understand why, because it should be okay. But it just doesn't feel as crispy sharp as the left-hand one when you compare the two. And that makes me feel a bit uncomfortable. But I do like the concept of what you've been doing. So I think you should actually have another go with that. And even if it means getting the foreground, the right-hand armrest sharper, and the left-hand one less sharp, I think that would work better for you. But I love the concept, so I'll leave this one. This is, you were dead lucky. You must have been there very early or very late. So few people. But I love the quality of this image. And I think you've just fully captured the intricacies of the design of the marble and all the inlay, and the people as well. You know, it just gives a sense of scale, but by presenting it in monochrome, we lose all the distractions of colourful Indian saris and whatever. So I think it is an excellent way of showing the Taj Mahal, and I am going to keep this one. Yeah. This is interesting because it's kind of part of the old and part of the new, and so we've got the old truck, we've got the horse and saddle, really old horse with an old saddle by the look at it. He's really scarred, bless him. But then the incongruities on the right hand side, they look like modern bungalows. So I find that a bit confusing. But that being said, I like the concept of what's been done. I get a feeling there might have been a little bit of fiddling and diddling going on, because the sky is quite bright around the horse's ear. Apologies for the laughter. And there's just a hint of something going on the horse's forehead as well. But I do like the idea of this, and I like the seeing of this. So I'm going to keep it for now. Yes. I'm wondering about this one. I love the shadows, and what you're trying to do here, and I think the issue that I've got is that if you'd had the full tonal range, then I think it might have worked a bit better, because you've got the black down at the bottom left. And then we're going up through the greys, but we never quite make it to the whites. And I know I've done some pictures where I've been playing with shadows and such like. And I think what I would suggest is, if you see, I don't know how to describe it, the lightest bit in the middle that comes down in a sort of curve and goes to a point, pointing to the bottom right. I would have selected out a little bit of that section, and then just lightened it up ever so slightly, just to get us a bit closer towards the whites of the range. Because what I'm feeling is, I love the idea of what you're doing, but it just feels a little bit dull and lifeless in its current formation. So I'm going to let that one go. Yes, you've got some great lighting on your castle for your brickwork, and the little bridge, whether it's the drawbridge, I don't know. So I think you've got a good time of day, but what you were less lucky with, which maybe you didn't notice until you were printing, and maybe not even then, is that there seem to be an awful lot of pigeons that like this castle. The ones on the right-hand turret are fine, because they're more or less lost in the trees. But what I'm finding really difficult to cope with, the flying ones on the left-hand side of the image, because they're mostly like blurred white blobs, and that is very distracting. So I think you really needed to clone out all the doves, the blobby doves. You can keep the ones that look like doves, but the blobs just need to go. So I'm going to let this picture go as well. Yes, I like the concept of this one. I like the quality of it, and I like the scene because it's not an easy picture to take, and you do get a sense of, you know, a really lovely old-fashioned pub with the photos on the wall and the highly polished counter and whatever. And you've done well because the lights are bright, but they're not too bright, and they add to the story. I am going to keep this picture, but I'm not sure whether it will get a mention, or well, what it'll get, if it'll get anything, because the window in the middle, just above where the bar curves, you are losing it a bit there, and that may be the thing that brings this picture down. But I like the concept of what you've done, and how you ever managed to find a pub with no people in it, I have no idea. But I will let this one go.
Sorry, Anne.
Oh, sorry,
You
didn't mean
said
to.
initially you were going to keep it.
Yeah, I did mean to keep it.
Keep it?
Yes, keep it, please. Sorry if that's not too difficult. Right. This one is it's interesting. It's all about patterns and shapes, but again, I sort of feel a bit like the shadows. It is a little bit grey. It probably is a horrible grey, nasty building anyway, but I think you perhaps needed to boost the contrast a little bit. Certainly the shapes and the patterns all work well, and the stairways work well. I also just get a feeling that it's ever so slightly soft in parts of the image. Some parts look to be okay, and then you suddenly think, not sure about some of the other bits. But I think if you were to boost the contrast a bit, that would actually help with that as well. So I'm going to let this one go. Yes, I think this is the first time I've ever seen a picture of, well, I don't know if it's the whole site, but most of the site, because we normally get to see the sort of the architectural pattern type pictures, but it is interesting to see what's going on and the shapes of the buildings. That being said, I'm not sure. I think I do like it. I like the tonal range. I like the way you've presented it, in other words, without too much water or sky in it. I might just have cropped it in a little bit closer on the right hand side. There's just a hint of another building coming in there, which I keep squinting at. But I think your post-processing is good. And as I say, it's interesting for me at least to see this building in its entirety. So I will keep it. This is one of the images that I am rendered ever so slightly speechless about, because I love it. And I just love the curvy shapes, and I sort of get the feeling of the big outer curve, excuse me, that comes in from top left and then goes down all the way around to the right. It just kind of encompasses quite a lot of what's going on. You get the lights, you get the darker shape, you get that pillar, and then you've got a slightly darker base, which works really well. Darker base and darker side, and the figure is perfectly positioned. But it's really all about the shape and how you've presented it. That's what makes this picture work for me. So I shall keep this one. And that's followed by a very different sort of shot, but again, great post-processing. This is, you know, this picture really has got the full tonal range, and added to that, it's got the action, it's got the expressions, the focus and concentration of the players, and the puck is centre stage. So this is a great ice hockey action shot. And it's a super picture, really super, because the crowds are diffused. So, and again, I think sometimes when you get colourful scenes, although they're great and they record reality, sometimes simplification to monochrome works superbly. And this is a good example of that. So we will keep this one, please. Yes, I've been trying to work this one out. It's a super scene, but I'm not 100% sure what I'm seeing at the top of the screen, because it looks like digital noise, but it's all coming down in a certain angle. So I'm wondering if I might be looking at as clouds or rainstorm. But there are other bits.
Annie, just to interrupt you, the title, and I think it's fair to say this is Tuscany in the Rain.
Oh, I missed the title. Good, thank you. I'm looking at rain. Nevertheless, it is a little bit bitty, but I think I can live with that. Because I think it works. It's very difficult to get a different picture of Tuscany, because the viewpoints are all pretty similar, and everybody wants mist, and it is difficult to do something difficult. And so the fact that the photographer actually was out in the rain and doing something different, which gives us a kind of, you know, a strong foreground, but then a whole load of recession going on in the background, simplified, of course, by the rain. So I congratulate the photographer. I apologise for missing the title, and I'm going to keep it. And I like this one. This is a sort of composite with texture, and it's got a kind of oldie worldy feel that I think really works, because it looks as if it's on some sort of European, Spain or maybe France street, but with the lovely old-fashioned lamppost. We've got the big fat mama, but she's got a lovely expression on her face, and just the interaction between her and the boy is super. And the way it's been presented, it's the same as the hockey players, you know, presenting it in monochrome, but sepia type monochrome, and also sort of almost as if it's an old-fashioned print, suggested by the texture added to it. It just kind of, it adds to what was probably a very nice image in colour, but I think it works so much better in monochrome. So I'm going to keep this one as well, please. Yes, very different from anything that we've seen so far. Again, a beautiful model. I have to say that, beautifully lit. I assume that she wasn't there, or maybe she was. I'm struggling a bit with this one for a similar reason to one we saw in another section. It's a matter of balance, because it's quite lightish on the right hand side, and then it goes very dark to the left of the model. And whether it needed to be quite that dark, I'm not sure, because she stands out beautifully, even against the lighter architecture in the right-hand side of the picture. So I'm struggling with this a bit. I just feel, for some reason, it doesn't quite work for me. Whether it's the scale, or whether it's the contrast of the light that's been on the model and then the darkness of the crypt. But there's something that just doesn't quite hang together as well as it might. So I'm sorry, but I'm going to let it go. Those were the days. Gosh. That's a really old record. That looks like a 78. Fantastic. So yes, somebody tell me again, because I missed the title. I was too busy looking at the record.
Playing the old record.
Thank you. Didn't want to put my foot in it again. Yes, it appeals, but clearly the record is still, and I think, given that you, the photographer, are in control of everything, really, you should have perhaps had slightly better lighting, because you've got some very bright highlight on the arm that carries the needle, and you've got some areas like the arm that's not that sharp. And it just, for me, you've got dust on your record or on your sensor. I just think that in a situation like this, where you are in total control of what happens, perhaps you could have made a little bit more of this image than you actually have. So I'm going to let it go. Yeah, these scenes tend to be set up, and therefore we see a lot of them, and some of them are very, very samey. But in this particular case, I think this is different, because there's obviously been quite a significant amount of rain, and we've got the reflection of the aircraft, which adds something to the image. It makes it different from many of the others that you see, and it also fills the bottom part of the image. It gives us foreground image, and also I sometimes feel with some of the people who are dressed up that that they're not really acting the role. But in this particular case, it does look as if they're tired, and it does look as if they're glad that they've landed and they've parked and it's all over. So there's some good storytelling in here and some good seeing, because you've got just the right viewpoint. So I will keep this one. This is a bit the same as the record. You know, the crown is great, and it looks really old, and goodness knows where you found it. But I'm not sure why you put the crystal in front of it and then allowed the crystal to be out of focus, because I think what really was needed was perhaps the other way round, with a suggestion of the crown and possibly even some shadow behind the crown, and then the crystal sharp, and maybe you even getting down so low that parts of the crown are showing through the crystal. But just having sort of the crystal in the way that you presented it, I don't think helps the image as much as you hoped it might. So I'm going to let this one go. Yeah, this is It's well seen, and it's a very simple picture, but it's nicely presented. I like the way you've done the monochrome, and I just like the shapes, the curve of the letter keys at the top, and then the old typewriter keys and the lighting on them, because it gives quite a sense of something that the photographers thought about what they're doing and what they're including and what they're not including. I have to say that that little bright highlight to the left of the shift key I might have toned down, and I think I might equally have toned down the top left-hand corner a little bit, and probably also given the image a key line. But it does appeal to me. I like the post-processing that's gone on, or the lack of need for it. So I'm going to keep this one for now.
That's 10, John.
Yes, 10. Okay.
Got a bit carried away there, didn't I? Okie dokie. So, right. Mission over is going to be commended. And the typewriter is going to be commended. Then highly commended is the Taj Mahal. Well done, Bob. And also highly commended is the, if I'm pronouncing it right, the Roca Gallery. Well done, Bob. And now we come to the difficult decision. Second is Eyes on the Puck. Oh, Steve's doing all right. And the winner, it was super image, Por Favor Mama. Well done, Joe.
Right.
Right, so that's it. Before we all go, well, the others are going to be with you for a bit longer. I'd just like to say I thought there were some absolutely stunning images there. I've really enjoyed doing this, and thank you for asking me. And I'm glad just once in my life I'm judging projected images in the annual and not prints, which I seem to have done for years and years and years. So it's sheer luck, and thank you anyway. And thank you to all the entrants. And keep safe.
Don't quite despair yet, Anne, because I think we've got to give you our thanks. I mean, you're always a good judge winning a hall, but I think doing this excellent judging, making really thoughtful comments on every image, but doing it, you know, in these rather strange circumstances with odd chiming clocks and things in the background. Your dog was very well behaved, so thank you.
He was. I don't know whether he was with me, but I don't know whether he still is.
But he's done a great job. So, but I think to do it for what, I don't know how many hours we've been going now, but it's a long time without a real break. You deserve something after this, probably something very strong and mildly alcoholic. But you've done an excellent job. We really appreciate it. And also I want to thank the whole team that hopefully you can see in front of you now. This has been a huge team effort. It's not been easy to get this up and running. There probably have been a few glitches, so hopefully you'll forgive us that. But when we get this ready for you to see on screen, I hope you'll see that it turns out to be a fairly smooth operation. With luck, if this has worked as well as I think it has, and maybe we'll try and do something similar again once we've got a bit more time to work out something. Thanks everybody, all the images. I mean, Anne said this, there were some very strong images right across the board, and from a range of members, not just, you know, the usual people that often get awards. I think people trying hard, and I appreciate the support you're giving the society during these challenging times. You put efforts in to get your images in. I hope they've been rewarded by some really good comments, and I think we'll all enjoy hopefully watching this when we see it on online shortly. So thanks everybody, thanks Anne, thanks the team, thanks members for supporting. I hope you enjoy watching, and we'll look forward to posting it online as soon as we can get the recording sorted out. Okay, thanks everybody.